I'm Davy. I'm awesome. Welcome to Davy's Awesome Wrestling, where I review wrestling-related things all from the perspective of a fan, not an insider. This past week was the annual AEW New Japan Pro Wrestling Forbidden Door, live from London, England. Let's get into it. The opening match, Adam Copeland and Christian Cage reuniting to take on Killswitch and Kip Sabian. It was going to be Nick Wayne, but he got injured. It was a good opener. Killswitch and Kip Sabian definitely weren't on the same page, as Killswitch seemed to keep attacking Kip Sabian for no reason. But it was definitely cool to see Adam Copeland and Christian Cage tagging up again, seeing their teamwork, like a flapjack spear that they did to get the pin and the win over Kip Sabian, making us nostalgic, making us hope that maybe there's going to be a tag team run, who knows. But for right now, I wouldn't say this was great, but it was really good. So I wouldn't give it a 4, but easily a solid 3 out of 5. Yeah! Then for the TNT Championship, New Japan's Hiromu Takahashi versus Kyle Fletcher. It was a great match. Crazy back and forth. Kyle being brutal and Hiromu laughing that off. Almost to the point of being disturbing, yet slightly exciting. But eventually, as we kind of predicted, Kyle Fletcher got the brain buster, the pin, and the win over Hiromu Takahashi. Because I will say this, at this point, it just seems like New Japan is willing to let AEW guys win their titles, but they haven't really returned the favor yet. I didn't think it was going to happen here. But it was still so good that I would give it a 4 out of 5. Then for the TBS Championship, a 4-way. Alex Windsor versus Bozilla versus Persephone versus the champion Mercedes Moné, who is now 9 belts Moné, after winning Discovery Wrestling Women's Championship. Off the bat, this match was cool just because not only was it AEW and New Japan, but they added a CMLL in Persephone. And then the match itself, it was pretty cool. It was chaotic, mostly in a good way. Sometimes the bad way, where it was a little hard to follow, but mostly good. Like, for example, when there was the triple submission thing going on. That's always cool. And it ended when Persephone was about to get the Crucifix Powerbomb onto Mercedes Moné, but instead got rolled up and pinned, and she clearly looked very despondent about it. And whereas, again, this was a really good match, it was predictable. Like, again, it doesn't seem like AEW is willing to let other companies take their titles, which I'll get more into later. So, just going based on that behavior, the only possibility was Alex Windsor, and let's face it, she's not quite there yet. They're building her up, she's good, but she's not at that level yet. So we kind of knew that Mercedes Moné was going to keep the title. So honestly, if it really wasn't for the predictability in this match, probably would have gotten a 4, but I just don't quite feel it got there. But a 3 out of 5. Yeah! Then, for New Japan's IWGP World Heavyweight Championship, Nigel McGuinness challenging the champion, Zack Sabre Jr. This was a freaking awesome match. I mean, of course it was going to be. It was Nigel McGuinness, it was Zack Sabre Jr., who is hailed as the best technical wrestler in wrestling today. I don't know if I would say best, but definitely in the conversation. And it actually did look like at one point that Nigel McGuinness was going to get the win when he got the Tower of London onto Zack Sabre Jr. But he didn't. It later came down to a split-second roll-up and the pin that got the win for Zack Sabre Jr., having him retain the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. But still, every time I see Nigel McGuinness wrestle, I get a little bit more nostalgic, a little bit more hopeful that maybe he will come back to full-time wrestling. However, this match in itself, like I said, it was crazy, it was back and forth. At first, went into it thinking there's no way Nigel's going to win, but about the middle of it, it was like, well, maybe. But he didn't. It was still great, though. 4 out of 5. Then, before we got to the next match, spilling out from the 0 hour, matches that happened then, it turned out Tekla and Queen Aminata were still fighting. And while this was going on, her partners, Julia Hart and Sky Blue, came out to help, and it led to the return of Jamie Hayter, who we haven't seen in a little bit. It's a few months, but still. Then, for the AEW Tag Team Championships, a 3-way. FTR versus Brodito versus the champions, the Hurt Syndicate. It was a good match, and it came down to some guys in New Japan Pro Wrestling jumpsuits came out, started attacking the Hurt Syndicate, and it turned out to be Ricochet and the Gates of Agony. Which is making us wonder, were they hired by MJF Or did they do this on their own for having gotten punked by the Hurt Syndicate at one point? As time goes on, we're going to find out, but it basically left it to where Brodito and FTR were now in a one-on-one situation. And surprisingly, Brodito is the one that picked up the win and became the new AEW World Tag Team Champions, which is kind of cool. Bandito and Brody King, great team. Don't know if I like the name Brodito, but still, I like that they're tag team champions. This is awesome. I would not say it was great enough to get a 4, but an easy 3 out of 5. Then, for the AEW Unified Championship, Swerve Strickland versus Kazuchika Okada. It was awesome. Crazy back and forth, awesome wrestling match. One that made you wonder who was going to win. This was one where we honestly had no idea. But it did come down to Swerve Strickland getting caught in a Rainmaker and Okada getting the pin and the win over Swerve Strickland, retaining his AEW Unified Championship. But then it was after the match that, for whatever reason, Okada decided to really stick it to Swerve Strickland by trapping his leg in between the turnpost and the steel steps and repeatedly hitting it with a chair. Because of this, Prince Nana came out with a lead pipe. But this led to something else. It led to the return of Wardlow, who's been gone for a while and came out just to beat up Prince Nana. Give him a powerbomb or two, and apparently he's with the Don Callis family. Can't say I care that much about Wardlow being back. I was never a big fan of his, but the match itself, even if none of the story that was happening afterwards happened, this easily got a 5 out of 5. Then for the AEW Women's World Championship, the Forever Champion Athena challenging the World Champion Timeless Toni Storm. It was a great match, as expected. Billy Starks, of course, was there with Athena, kept getting involved. So, on behalf of Toni Storm, out came Mina Shirakawa, who chased her off, leaving it to be just Toni Storm and Athena. And throughout the match, Toni Storm kept pulling out the crossface chicken wing, eventually got Athena into it, and Athena eventually tapped. Athena, who doesn't lose very often, and apparently has now wasted her contract cash-in. Ultimately, I was okay with it whichever way this would have ended. If this would have ended with Athena becoming the double champ, world champion, whatever. But I was also okay with Toni Storm continuing her reign because it's been very, very entertaining. I wouldn't say this match was good enough to get a 5 though, but I would easily say it was a 4 out of 5. Yeah! Then for the Men's World Championship, MJF challenging Hangman Adam Page. MJF, who found a way to swerve around having to use his contract. But either way, this match was awesome. It was brutal. At one point, the referee was out, and, continuing this feud that they've been doing, Mark Briscoe came out to distract MJF. And from there, Page was able to recover, get the Deadeye and the Buckshot Lariat, get the pin, and retain the championship over MJF. Which again, I wouldn't have been mad whichever way it ended. MJF still has the contract, so it's not over, but feels like he also needs to finish the stuff with Mark Briscoe. And Hangman and Page, I didn't really want him to lose it so quickly after taking off Jon Moxley. So, I will say it was great. I again don't know if I would give this one a 5, but another easy 4 out of 5. Yeah! Then the main event, a lights out cage match, meaning it was unsanctioned. 2 teams, Darby Allin, Hiroshi Tanahashi, Golden Lovers Kota Ibushi and Kenny Omega, and Will Ospreay, the one who made the challenge, versus the Young Bucks and the Death Riders, Jon Moxley, Claudio Castagnoli, and Gabe Kidd. It started out very entertaining because, as we know, the Young Bucks had lost their EVP powers and they've been getting messed with ever since. So even before the match started, it was very funny that they were forced to come out to Mbop from Hanson. But then the match itself was so freaking awesome. Again, there was blood and brutality, but also comedy mixed in. Because again, with the Young Bucks, apparently before the match, they had told somebody backstage to get them the most devastating thing they could think to put inside of a bag. Whether it be thumbtacks, glass, nails, whatever. And what was in that bag? Gummy bears! And I thought plastic spoons were devastating. But from there, more violence, more brutality, more blood. And Hiroshi Tanahashi getting the pin and the win over Matt Jackson. It was even cool that they made an extra long steel cage, kind of like a Hell in a Cell, but no roof. And then after the match, Will Ospreay is alone in the ring, waving goodbye to everybody because he was alluding to he's got neck injuries, he may have to take some time off. So the Death Riders trapped him in the cage with just them and went to town on his neck. The Ops came out, everybody fighting to get back in the cage. Once they did, the damage was already done. It ended with Will Ospreay in the middle of the match and us not knowing what's going on. Despite that, though, this match, there was no way it was not going to get a 5 out of 5. So, AEW New Japan Forbidden Door 2025 overall. Good show. A really good show. The opener with Adam Copeland and Christian Cage. I would say I expected a little bit more, but there was still the nostalgia for the returning of Adam Copeland and Christian Cage. The two mid-card championships, the TNT and the TBS, both only issue with them is they were predictable. We pretty much knew that the champion was going to retain. Whereas AEW people have won titles from CMLL. For example, Mercedes Moné is their women's champion, and MJF is their world heavyweight champion. And then even for New Japan, AEW people have held the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. Before it was turned into the Global Championship, they'd held the United States Championship, even the Heavyweight Tag Team Championships. But we've yet to see some New Japan or CMLL wrestler take an AEW Championship, and I'm kind of feeling that's a little bit selfish. The Tag Team Championships, I was happy that they got off the Hurt Syndicate. That's gotten old, gotten a little stale. Maybe this is something they needed to spark it up. Not to mention, I like the story being built up here, because did MJF contract Ricochet and the Gates of Agony to go after the Hurt Syndicate for kicking him out? Or is this just Ricochet wants to go after the Hurt Syndicate because he still got some bad blood when they punked him out? The Unified Championship, I still don't have an answer of, is this just the official title, or eventually is he going to lose it and the titles are going to split back up? I don't know. And again, it was just a freaking awesome match, building up to an even more awesome match, because I guarantee you Okada and Swerve Strickland, this isn't done. As far as Wardlow coming back, sure, I guess that's cool. I was never a big Wardlow fan. The Women's World Championship, again, the intrigue on there was Athena going to become the double champion? Didn't know. Because I will say this, as far as her being the Women's World Champion in ROH, this was something that could have revived it. Because it's gotten very boring. This long title reign needs to end at some point. So honestly, going forward, what I would do if I were AEW is I would have this rivalry keep going until the point it goes title for title. That would make it very interesting. The MJF Hangman Page match might have gone to a 5. It wasn't for the sense that, whereas there was a chance MJF could win, I think we pretty much knew that this was going to continue, so it wasn't going to go that way. The Lights Out Cage match, not only was it awesome, not only was it brutal, but it was building up stuff. Leaving Will Ospreay like that more than likely was to write in why he's going to be gone for a while. Like I said, they've been alluding to he's got neck injuries, he's probably going to have to take some time off, maybe get surgery. I don't know. But for him to potentially go out in front of his home crowd in London was a fitting end. But not to mention, everybody in that match with him is still feuding with the Death Riders, so we'll see where that goes. Either way, this pay-per-view was awesome because it was that kind of thing that I like, where it ended some things, but even the things it ends them in a way to where now something else is going. You gotta keep watching. My only criticism of Forbidden Door 2025 is that it did not, in my opinion, live up to the previous Forbidden Doors. Forbidden Door has become something that I very much look forward to. It's always a great show. It's usually like an amazing show to the point I give it a 5. This one, though, where it was really good, there were a couple of 5s, few 4s, few 3s. No bad match. No match that I was like, well, I'd barely give this 3. No, the few that I gave 3s, they were solid. It's just that feeling of like, it just didn't live up to what I was hoping for, what I get excited for. And I get it, they can't knock it out of the park every time, but that's just my thing. The last few Forbidden Doors knocked out of the park. This one, really good, but not quite that great. So that alone is why when what would I rank Forbidden Door is I say I don't think it quite earned a 5, but a very, very solid 4 out of 5. Yeah! So yeah, that's my wrestling video this week. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you did, make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, hit the little bell so you get notifications when I post the videos, and leave a comment I can respond to in my next comment corner. Tell me what you thought of AEW New Japan Pro Wrestling Forbidden Door 2025. Tell me if you feel it did live up to the other ones, or if it didn't. Love you guys.